Morning, church. So we got two sections of Philippians you're going to read from. The first will be from chapter 1, verses 3 through 5. Every time I think of you, I give thanks to my God. I give thanks to my God. Whenever I pray, I make my request for all of you with joy. For you have been my partners in spreading the good news about Christ from the time you first heard it until now. The second section will be chapter 3, verses 13 and 14. No, dear brothers and sisters, I have not achieved it, but I focus on this one thing, forgetting the past and looking forward to what lies ahead. Press on to reach the end of the race and receive the heavenly prize for which God, through Jesus Christ, is calling us.
Riley, Kinley, if y'all don't mind making your way up here real quick. It's got your middle name on it. Can I tell everyone? No. Kinley. As y'all know, and Robbie's already mentioned, and I think we put it out on social media. Riley was baptized by Dad on Tuesday, right? Okay. Because she wanted to make sure, one, she gave her life to Christ, but she also wanted to make sure that Dad was the one who did it. So, I'm starting early. And then Terry baptized Kinley on Wednesday. We're so grateful. And Dad's proud. And he's grateful that you were his last baptism here. Whew. It's going to be a long day, guys. Let's give thanks to God and let's pray for these young ladies. Dear God, we come to you and we just thank you for everything you do for us, Lord. And we are so thankful for these young ladies who gave their life to you. God, and we just ask that you bless them and that we as the church back them. And we do everything we can to help them further their life in you. And it's in Christ and we pray. Amen. Oh, man. I'm going to be honest with y'all. I don't want to be up here. I would much rather have Dad here, his last sermon to y'all, than me. I'm going to be honest with you, these last couple of weeks have been hectic. Both of my guys at work had to have surgery within 2 days of each other, and so I'm by myself for 4 weeks, supporting 7 buildings. Last Friday, I got an email from a lawyer subpoenaing me out to California, so I had to fly out there Monday and come back Wednesday. We get back, and then we find out yesterday that Dad has COVID, and he says, he asked me if I would fill in for him. And so I want to be honest with you. I have not had a lot of time to process what in the world's actually happening. So y'all are probably going to see Chad processing a lot of his emotions up here today. But like I said, I love getting up here. I love getting up here speaking. I love getting up here preaching. But I'm going to be honest with you. This is one time where I would much rather have Dad, and I'm sure y'all would much rather have Dad up here speaking. So I had a half a day to put something together. And I was thinking about this, and so the question comes: what lies ahead? We're looking at, we're losing our preacher, me and Helen, and we're losing our father, our in-laws, and our family. And so the question is, what's going to lie ahead? What's the future look like? And so I thought, you know what? Let's do 2 things today. Let's honor our past. Let's look at our past. My thing was, and I told Kat this last night, I said, if I have to be emotional up here, y'all are going to have to be emotional too. So it's only fair. And so This is what we're going to do today. So the first thing we're going to start off with is we're going to honor our past. I want to look at I don't know how many of you are familiar with the history and the past of this church, but it's got a rich history. It's got a really a humble beginning if you look at it. And I'm going to try to make sure I get all the details right. I think Ronald's the only one in here who was here when it started. I could be wrong with that, but and he can correct me. But so we're going to go through this. So the Lake Park Church of Christ started in 1955. They first met in the house of, and I hope I get her name right, Joe, and is it Floey? No, he said you butchered it. Maybe it was, but anyways, it started in their residence, I think, in 1955. And this is a picture of I think a storefront that they used to meet in, and so Ken was talking to me this morning. I think it was the late 50s. They built, if y'all are familiar with the house, where the church building used to be over on 41, there was a little annex in the back. That's where they first started meeting. And then in the 1960s, they built, and then further on, they added on to this building that we know and familiar with. Some of us here worship with in the 1960s, and they used that building for over 40 years. Dad's first sermon was on August 4th, 2004, in that building. And if I'm not mistaken, me and Kim were talking about this as well this morning, I think Dad is the longest preacher this church has had at 18 years. So he's dedicated a lot of his life here. Actually, if you go back through our history, he spent twice as long here as he has at any church that he's been with. So he loves this congregation. But as the church continued to grow in the early 2000s, they bought the land that the building is on now. And in 2011, we had our first service here, September 11th, 2011. I always remember that date. We had our first service here in this building. And as you can see, in 2020, even with COVID and everything, we started building the two buildings that you see on either end over here. And so this is a small, very small part of the history in the past of the Lake Park Church of Christ. It had a very humble beginning, and it's grown to where it is today because of the hard work of many people. And so I wanted to continue to revisit our past. And I said, well, what's the best way to revisit your past? Pictures, I think. And if y'all know me, I've been taking pictures for this church since 2006 when we first got here. So I spent last night going through, check this out, 20,000 pictures that we have taken, not just me, over the last 16, almost 17 years. And so I'm going to be honest with you. I got pictures in here as many people as I could. I know I left people out. I know we're going to look at some other things too, and I know I've left people out. Please don't be offended. I only had a few hours, and I did my best. But I wanted us to be able to see, because they say a picture's worth 1,000 words, but I also think a picture's worth 1,000 memories. And as you see these, I think it's going to bring back and remember who we've been, where we've come from as a church. So, Ken, the first one is you. You really haven't aged that much. I'm going to be honest with you, the Carters don't age a lot. Yeah. Oh, Conrad, Jan, look at there. Ralph and Lark, I don't know if we took this in the wintertime or if it was Christmas, but that's very festive. I don't know what it was. Terry, that's back when we had hair, man. Brian and Kelly, look at this picture. Little Levi, little Grant. Tim and Christy, Kylie, Chris. I know Kelsey and him couldn't be here either, but look at that. Like I said, if I got to be emotional, y'all do too. Kyle and Mindy, little baby. I don't even know if y'all are married yet here. Were you? Okay. Little babies. I don't even recognize these people, to be honest with you. Oh, I had hair. That's what I said. That's back when me and Terry had hair. David and Donna Sue. Summer, Jerry, look at this picture. Look at little Mason. I don't think the Coggins are here today. That's another family that hadn't aged, except for obviously the kids. Mike and Penny look exactly the same. Cameron and James Michael obviously don't. Robbie, Kat. Kat, she's got gray hair now. Jean, she hasn't aged either. Like I said, them Carters, they don't age. Miss Betty. Yep. Paul, he's another one. He hadn't aged either. He may have lost one stroke off his golf game, if that, but I doubt it. Ronald and Dorothy. Jean and Patsy, miss them. Troy, Allie, I got you in here too. I think this was before y'all started talking or dating any. The Scarboroughs, look at their boys there. And I got this one, and a couple more. This one come up, and I just had to put this up here. It's just crazy. Ramsey's back there married with a baby. Kylie's about to be married. And Justin, Justin's got the mullet going on. That's all I can say, man. He's a Bailey. Anyone looking, you got a bachelor back there. I had to throw this one in here because I don't know who does their church directory picture like this. Oh. And then this last one. Andy, you here? Andy's here. I thought I saw him. He's here somewhere. All right. Andy, if you're back there, look at this. There's a lot more pictures, but I wanted us to look at these and just kind of remember. I mean, a lot of these were from 14, I think 15 years ago, and a lot's happened in those 14, 15 years. A lot's changed. And so here's going to be the hard one, the hard ones, not the hardest yet. If we look at our past, we've got to remember those we've lost. And the first one that I put up there, Aunt Bonnie. Gosh. Everyone got a card from her. Yeah, mine always came with $5. I don't know if y'all were special enough to get $5 or not. Miss Beverly. Man, I miss her so much. Doing VBS without her, it's just so hard. Oh, James and Francis Copeland. They're such sweet people. We now live in the house that they were in, that they used to live in, the farm. Miss Rita Boyd. I don't know how many of y'all remember when we used to go out and have to clean her property. Oh, man, that was fun. But there was a bunch of us there, and we had a good time. That was one of the first things I remember about coming down here. Miss Mary Tomlinson. Here's another sweet lady, Miss Annie Ruth Carter. And who just had an influence on a lot of us. I know. My grandmother, I don't know how much of an influence she had on us. She was, you met her, you understand where Dad got a lot of his from. She looks like that's a hostage photo. I don't know what she did there. Mr. Darius. Miss him so much. Miss him so much. He was always so kind. Always had a good thing to say. These next one's going to be hard. Mr. Walt, Miss Han. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm up here today, a big part of because of Mr. Walt. I would, when I first started speaking, I wasn't very good. I'm still not probably that good. But he would always, every service, Chad, you did such a wonderful job. If you can keep, while he's trying to break your hand, if you can keep this old man awake, then you're doing a good job. And he would always encourage me, always. Miss Ann was always so sweet and encouraging as well. Always willing to try to do something new, help out wherever she could. Johnny and Nan Dasher. Nan, sweetest lady you ever met. Johnny was Johnny. No, we miss them. Miss Bonnie Hutchison, such a sweet lady. So sweet. Miss Doris Black, she helped us out so much every VBS. Wonderful influence. I see her, and then I see Troy, and I just wonder where, No, I'm just kidding. She was such a sweet lady. Miss Hilda Lynn. Drove her car until almost, I think, the day she passed away. I used to complain about having to carry 5-gallon gas cans to fill up my lawnmower, my zero turn, until one day I get out there, and bless her heart, she's in her 90s, and she's out there carrying her own 5-gallon gas can and filling it up. I was like, I can't complain no more. Strong lady, strong, just wonderful woman. Mr. Tom Reynolds, with his cool sunglasses, had a big impact on this church for many years. Jimmy Guess, I know Geneva, I don't think she's here today, but I know she's watching online. She lets me know every week she watches online. Mr. Jimmy. And then the last one I just saw this and it hit me, and is the Carter home. All those who knew them and Aubrey every year or every week let you know it was his birthday. And so, oh, he did, didn't he? It was his birthday this pen. But, and like I said, y'all, I know there's many more that we've lost and we can remember. And I'm sorry that if I miss someone, I'm sorry. I tried to get as many as I could remember, and those who really were foundational in this church and helped building it up. But, and here's the hardest one. Today we're here to remember Mom and Dad, Marvin and Kathy. This is one of their pictures from when they first started early back in the day. They look a little, their dad's aged a little bit. Mom a little bit, not much, maybe. But here's the fun part, right? I had to put this picture in here, and I don't know, Dad might shoot me, or who knows, he'll wait till I get him moved first. But I want to tell you that our Marvin, or Dad, is the only preacher who would ever dress up like a woman. I had to put that in. And I'll probably say that for the rest of this church's history, we probably won't have another preacher who dresses up like a woman. I could be wrong, but anyways. Or a rooster. Grouchy Rooster was a huge part of our VBS for so long, and do that. And then the other thing I had to throw in here, I had to throw this picture in here because I wanted to have proof that we were able to get Ken to dress up as Captain VBS, wear a cape with tights. Oh, it was tough. Yep, she did. Mom can convince people to do anything. He was Sheriff Ryan, and he was many. I could have, y'all know, I got hours and hours of just VBS videos we could have played and gone through. And then this last one of Mom, because she was just as critical as Dad was in supporting him and helping with the growth of this church. And so, as Mom and Dad move on, one thing I want to say, and then this doesn't belittle or put down all the hard work that the many people in this church through the years have gone. But I will say, and this is Chad's thought and Chad's opinion, but I will say that this church would not be where it's at today if it were not for my mom and dad. And so we honor them. We honor them a lot. And so Dad, man, he was so upset. He just didn't understand. I was talking to Ken and Chris both this morning, and I don't understand why God allows things to happen the way they do. Who knows? He has his reasons. And we got to trust him. We don't like them. I don't like them. But we got to trust him. So he wanted me to play a video for y'all. It's about 5 minutes, and then I'll conclude the rest of this lesson. So here's a message from Dad.
Well, beloved, we certainly didn't expect our farewell to end like this, and we surely didn't want it to end this way. We look forward to being with you all this morning in sweet fellowship and being able to hug a lot of people and say some personal goodbyes and eat lunch with some folk. And the doctors quarantined me. He said I have the Omicron virus, which is a much milder virus according to the doctor. However, he said I do have to quarantine for 5 days. And so that's the way it is. That's what we have to do. I miss seeing y'all this morning. Kathy certainly does as well. I need to give some thanks, of course, first and foremost. I want to thank Chad for filling in for me at the last minute, and that's always hard to do, and I appreciate that very much. I want to thank everybody, all of you, for all the many ways you showed your love and appreciation to Kathy and I. Thanks for the gifts, all the scrumptious food, and whether you brought it to our house or we ate at your house, it was all very good, and we appreciate it. The farewell supper that you all blessed us with at Georgia Christian School with the tremendous amount of food, and then the many, many expressions of love and affection that you all shown to us. We appreciate that very much. We truly are a church family, and we're going to miss y'all, and I hope you know that. Yesterday, when I went to the doctor's office, I went before anyone arrived, because I didn't think I had this Omicron, but just in case I didn't want to be around people, and so I left early before anyone arrived to the house to help move, and so when I got back home, I turned into the driveway, and I was very deeply moved when I saw how many cars and trucks was parked in our yard, and how many of you all were loading that truck, and then you did so very efficiently. Everybody worked according to Kathy, and I appreciate you all so very much for doing that. That was a job, and a whole bunch of people got together, and y'all loaded that truck what I would consider a very good time. So we appreciate it so very, very much. Even young Preston Smith helped consume plenty of snacks, so we were very grateful for that as well. And of course, while I'm thanking folk, I have to give a very special thanks to my dear friend and brother Robbie Herring, our office manager, as he's called. He does so much more than that for me. He's the best of the best. Robbie, you made coming to work a very pleasant experience. And whatever I needed, Robbie got it done. Whatever request I made, he was right on it, and I appreciate that. Robbie, I have a proposal for you. If you will move to West Virginia, I'll hook you up with one of them mountain mamas. How's that? All right, think about that, Robbie. Beloved, I want to give, I guess, what I would call parting exhortations. This was going to be part of my original lesson before the doctor quarantined me. And it's very brief, but this is what I want you to understand and know. Please, to those of you who are faithful, by faithful I mean you are serving the Lord in some capacity, and you do so constantly. Some of you have done the same thing for years. I want to the 10 to 15% that does the most of the work in the church, I want to encourage you all to keep on. I know there are times it gets frustrating, but I want you to keep on serving and grow in that service. And then, for a whole lot of you, brethren, I'm just going to be honest, I've always tried to be that way. For a lot of you, it's time for you to stand up, step up, and seriously serve. You have many, many talents. The Bible says that I would study Romans 12 and Ephesians 4 and 1 Corinthians 12. They all talk about the body of Christ. And 1 Corinthians 12:18 tells us that God has placed every member in his body where he wants them to be. So God puts you in a body for a function, for a reason, and you need to find what that is and use your gifts for the Lord. Ephesians 4:16 reminds us that the church grows and builds itself up when every part does its work. You all know how a body that does, if half the body doesn't work, that body's going to be handicapped. We need to do that in every church, and I would encourage you all to do that. Get serious. Get serious about serving the Lord, okay? Because you are very uniquely gifted by God. And so use your gifts to build up the church and to bring the lost to Jesus especially. Beloved, our 18 years with the Lake Park Church has been at times challenging, sometimes frustrating, but very wonderful. I want you all to know, and I hope you know, we're speaking from our heart that Kathy and I are going to miss each and every one of you. And we love you, and we will miss you, and we ask you to please continue to keep us in your prayers. And God bless.
Oh, man. So now, we look at our past, and we honor those in our past and those who have come before us, but now it's time to look to our future. And I know there's a lot of uncertainty. There's you know, we know what, like when preachers or churches lose their preachers, right? And there's that transition. There's a lot of uncertainty. And so for the verse here I wanted to pull up was Jeremiah 29:11. It says, "For I know the plans I have for you, says the Lord. They are plans for good and not for disaster, to give you a future and a hope." God has great plans for this church. Let me say it. God has great plans for this church. Here's the thing. God does not say He's going to make these plans happen. He says He doesn't want them to end in disaster, but that does not mean that they cannot. We saw this. He's talking to Jerusalem here on this. God did not want Jerusalem to go through a lot of the things they went through. And so we've got to take the time, and we've got to take the commitment, and we've got to make sure that we commit to making sure that we see through the plans that God has this. So I threw three things. One, I want to put three things for myself on here, and then three things that God expects from y'all, and then we'll close. I got three commitments. One, I'm going to continue to challenge you. Not only am I going to continue to challenge you, I'm going to continue to challenge myself. This is what I do. My goal in life is to be as much as like Jesus as much as I possibly can. I fail miserably at this, but it's my goal. And so I always continually try to challenge myself. And in doing that, I want to try to challenge you to be the same way. He challenged his followers. He challenged those who listened to him. He challenged the current religious systems that were in place because he wanted people to be like him and see him. And so I will continue to do the same. We see this in two Bible verses. You see it in a moment, but these are the two that I chose for today. One, 2 Corinthians 13:5. Examine yourselves to see if your faith is genuine. Test yourselves. Surely you know that Jesus Christ is among you. If not, you have failed the test of genuine faith. We have to test ourselves. We have to. If we ever think we get to the point where we have all the answers, then you have failed. And then in Lamentations 3:40, instead, let us test and examine our ways. Let us turn back to God. If we test ourselves and we say, hey, we're not where we're supposed to be, we need to turn back to God. We need to continuously be testing and examining ourselves and our ways. I'm going to continue to encourage you. Jesus constantly encouraged his followers, and it wasn't a false encouragement. It wasn't this, sometimes we see mothers, right? They have the rose-colored glasses on, and they encourage their children. They're like, oh, you can do anything, right? They're the worst singer you've ever heard, but no, you'll be able to sing opera one day. All these things, That's how mothers are. But he didn't give them a false encouragement. He let them know, hey, it's going to be hard. It's not going to be easy. But in the end, it's going to be worth it. He would encourage them. Paul would encourage the churches to make it to the end. It's going to be hard, but make it to the end. And we see this in Hebrews 10, verses 24 and 25. Let us think and pay attention to these two verses, the way these are intertwined together. We like to use them for, talking about coming in and gathering, and that's good. But look how Jesus Paul is intertwining these two verses. Let us think of ways to motivate one another to acts of love and good works. Let us think about this. All right? And then let us not neglect our meeting together as some people do, but encourage one another, especially now that the day of his return is drawing near. So not only are we, when we're not together, we should be thinking of ways to motivate each other. Hey, so-and-so's having a hard day. So-and-so's having a hard time. We need to be thinking this. And then when we get together, we need to encourage one another. Build each other up. We see this in 1 Thessalonians 5:11. So encourage each other as you build each other up, just as you are already doing. And my third commitment, I'll try to continue my best to teach the truth in love. We like to talk about teaching the truth, but we need to make sure we throw that in love in there at the end. Because the truth without love is what? A gong, a cymbal. No one's going to pay attention. You can have the most truth in the world, but if you do not present it in love, then no one's going to listen to you. Ephesians 4:15 says, instead we speak the truth in love, growing in every way more like Christ, who is the head of his body, the church. So what makes us more like Christ? Speaking the truth in love. The more you speak the truth in love, the more that you become like Christ, who is the head of the church. And so those are three things that I'm going to do my best to commit to. But I want to go over three things that God expects from us. That God expects from us as His people, everyone in this room, and those who are watching online. He expects for us to be faithful. And when I say faithful, I'm going to be honest with you, I do not mean showing up 3 times a week, giving, taking communion, and throwing some money in the I already said the offering plate. To me, that's bare minimum. Right? If we had a standard for being a Christian, that's maybe reaching the bare minimum. All right, we're talking about being faithful. This means being faithful to Christ and carrying out everything He says. And as I was putting this together, I said, what is going to be, what verse can I use that talks about being faithful to Christ? And there's like 1,000 of them in there, right? There's 1,000. It's like, if you do this, you're faithful. You do this. So I said, you know what? What did Jesus say? When Jesus was tempted and they asked Him, said, you know, what's the greatest command, right? They're trying to trick Him. What's the greatest? He gave them 2. And I think if we want to look at how can we be faithful for God, we write these verses down and try to live our life every day. Jesus replied in Matthew 22:37-40, you must love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, all your mind. This is the first and greatest command. A second is equally important. Love your neighbor as yourself. And then he says this, the entire law and all the demands of the prophets are based on these 2 commandments. So I said, if we want to be faithful to God, we want to wrap it all up into, you know, what do I need to do to be faithful? We do these things right here. Love God with all your heart, all your soul, and all your mind. That's you're committing everything to Him. And then turn around while you're doing that, and then you love your neighbor as yourself. You do these 2 things, and you will be as hard as you can, and you will be faithful to God. There's a lot more that entwines in that, and that's why He says, right, the entire law and everything, it all wraps up. The entire Bible, everything we said, we wrap it all up, and it fits into these 2 verses, 3 verses. The second one, and Dad mentioned this, is for us to serve. All right, this is to serve God, to serve one another. Right? And when I say serve, and I don't take this the wrong way, I don't mean just, you know, teach a class on Sunday mornings. Those are great things. Those are wonderful things. But when we're talking about serving, we're talking about giving 100% to God. We are serving God. And I was trying to come up with what verse I felt fit this the best. And I came up with Matthew 23:11. The greatest among you must be a servant. All right, this goes against the human struggle, right? I know it does for me. Right? I'm a very competitive person. If I'm doing something, I want to be the best at it, right? I want to give it 110%. I want to go all out and, you know, and try to just, you know, be above everyone else. That's human nature. You know, a lot of us are like that. But Jesus says no. No. He says if you want to be the greatest, then you must serve the most. You must be a servant. Now, can you imagine what this church would look like if we competed to outserve each other? Outserve the world? And that's what God, you know, God flips the world on its head, the idea of humanity. So He flips it over. He says, if you want to be the greatest, you become the least. Wonder what that would look like if all of us were trying to be the greatest servants of each other. And then lastly, He expects every member to be a minister. Unfortunately, too often in the church, and being a preacher's son, I've seen this a lot. The church expects the preacher to be the minister. Exactly. Amen. And a few other, you know, maybe more dedicated, more, I don't know what word I'm looking for there. But that's not the way that the church is intended to be. The preacher is supposed to help guide, right? Help lead. And so every one of us in this building, we are to be a minister to someone. We are to be ministering to the world, to those who are hurting, those who need us. And this verse right here wraps this up. 1 Peter 2:9. But you are not like that, for you are a chosen people. You are a royal priesthood, you are a royal priest, a holy nation, God's very own possession. He was giving them one of the greatest compliments by calling them the royal priest. And he says, because of this, as a result, you can show others the goodness of God. What is that? If you are showing goodness of God, what is that? It's ministering. It is ministering. For he called you out of darkness and into his wonderful light. We are called to be, we are royal priests. As that says how we are described here in 1 Peter. And we are to be a holy nation. And we're God's own possession. And because of that, we should be going out to others and showing that to God. Every member should be a minister. And there's more things that God calls us to do. But I felt that if we put those three things in, that if we stay faithful, we serve and we minister to everyone, that pretty much wraps it all up. And so here's where we're at. We're going to miss Mom and Dad. I know we are. We've had them next door to us for so many years, right? I was talking to someone about it. I'm almost 41 years old, and in that 41 years, I've only not had Dad as my minister and been at the church that he was at for 2 of those years. But here's what I've seen over the past 40 years as a minister's son. The church has 2 choices as we move forward. The first choice is that the church keeps doing what it's always done and hopes they'll get a different result. And typically what we've seen is, they accept the fact that we're just losing our youth at a horrible rates. Right? They'll a lot of times they go back and try to cling on to traditions, and they'll isolate themselves a lot from the world and kind of pull back and inwards. I don't know why. But for the most part, they play it safe. They stay comfortable, right? And they just try to make the easy choices. Brothers and sisters, that always ends in failure. We've seen churches that have done this. One is closed. The other one, the last time we went to a service there, it was like we were going to a funeral, and I'm not kidding. It was sad. We don't want to make this first choice. Here's the second choice that I've seen. We can come alive to the gospel of Christ. Come alive to it. Realize what makes the church isn't the name that we have on the building, right? It's not a certain list of things we do. Some of these things are important, right? I'm not dismissing them. They are important. But if we come alive with the passion of Christ and be like him and spread his word as far as we can possibly, we will turn this community upside down. We can turn it upside down. We spread God's love. We show the love that he has called us to do. We go out and we go after them. We go after these communities. Terry talked about this Sunday night. Chris has mentioned it. I've mentioned it in some of my Bible classes as well. What would happen if we disappear? What would happen if we said, you know what, Marvin's gone, we're going to close the doors? Would the Lake Park community notice? Would they really notice? Or would it be, hey, that's where the Lake Park Church of Christ used to meet? That's where there were some nice people there. We need to be in such a point that where if we close this building down, that the people in Lake Park would not to say they would suffer, but they would beg for us to come back and wish we were here. That is what the church is. That is what the Church of Christ was. They changed their community. They flipped their communities upside down. People looked at them and said these people were crazy for the things they were doing. But they were spreading the love of Jesus. Those are the 2 options. Option 1, I want to be honest, option 1 is the easy option. It is. Because it doesn't require a whole lot. It just kind of requires the continuation of just doing the same old things. The second option is hard. It requires sacrifice. It's going to require work. It's going to require dedication. But man, in the end, will it not be worth it? Man, would it not be worth it? And so the question then is, what lies ahead? Here's the answer. The answer to this question, and it's this easy. What lies ahead is up to every single person in this room. It's not my choice. It's not Robbie's choice. It's not Chris's choice. It's really, honestly, not the elders' choice. And you're like, well, what? Steve's like, huh? It's our choice. Because the elders can guide us in the direction, but if we choose not to do it, we're not going anywhere. And so here's my thing. And I don't want a side note here. Go tell the elders. Go talk to your elders. Steve has asked. Ronald has asked. Go talk to your elders. They cannot guide you properly if they don't know your needs. You have to talk to them. You have to let them know what you need. And so then at that point you can't, if something doesn't go right or something doesn't go, you can't complain because then you didn't go and talk to them. So talk to your elders, please. Those are your options. That's what lies ahead. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't want any part of option 1. I don't. I want to see option 2. I am on board with that all day long. I want to see us go out. I want us to change the world. I want anyone to ask us, hey, is there a church in the Lake Park area? And everyone's answer be, you know what, there's a Lake Park Church of Christ up there. You need to go see them people because, man, are they crazy. Because they'll love you no matter what. They'll welcome you no matter what. They'll bring you in no matter what. It doesn't matter what you've done, who you are, what you've done in your past, man. You walk in them doors, and they're going to love you like you're their own. That is what the Church of Christ was. That is what they spread the message. They treated people with such great love, and that is who we are to be. And here's how we're going to do it. All right, man, like I said, we're going to miss Dad. We're going to miss Dad so much. But here's the thing. This is what makes up the church, and he mentioned this in his message. And this was going to be a crucial part of his message. Ephesians 4:16, he makes the whole body fit together perfectly as each part does its own special work. It helps the other parts grow so that the whole body is healthy and growing and full of love. We cannot do it without you. Everyone in this room has their part. Those watching online, they have their own part. They have their gift. So that's what lies ahead. I think that we have wonderful things for this church in the future. I do. I think this church is, if anything, Dad has left us an example of how to be. And we can do that. We've got to commit to doing that. And we've got to commit to being the Christians that Jesus has called us and God has called us to be. Let's go to Brad in prayer. Dear God, I thank you for everything you do for us, Lord, and I thank you for the many blessings you give us, and I thank you for the opportunity we have to come here, and I thank you for your Son, and I thank you for his death on the cross that gives us the very ability to be here and the reason to be here for his salvation that he offers to us. Lord, I ask that you bless this church as we move forward, that you put in our hearts the fire and the passion that we saw in the first century church to spread your message, to go out and to bring others to you, to show love to one another, to show love to the community, and for everyone to see us for who we are and through you, and to see you through us. Lord, I just ask you to continue to bless us, and it's in Christ's name we pray. Amen. Now, we always offer an invitation because it's important that we do so. It's important that, no matter what spectrum you're on, it doesn't matter if you've been a Christian for 30 years and you need the prayers of the church, you can come up here and ask for the prayers. If we want to see the thing that we want you to do is if you're not a Christian, we want you to become a Christian. It's important. You may say, well, Chad, I've got all this stuff going on. I got to get my life right. No, you don't. That's the wonderful thing about Jesus. It doesn't matter how messed up you are. You can come to him the way you are, and he will accept you. And then we start working on getting you better. And so whatever spectrum you're on, if you're saying, hey, you know what, Chad, I need to do a better job. I have not been doing the job I need to do as a Christian. I haven't been the Christian I should be. Come on, you don't have to come up here. right? You know, it can be nerve-wracking to come up here. But I'm telling you, if you do, you talk to someone. We're supposed to encourage. I got the word encourage one another, build one another up. Go to someone, right? If you want to give your life to Christ and you say, hey, no, I just don't want to do it in front of everyone, grab someone you know, grab me. We'll stay with you, and I'll baptize you in a second. Because that's important. It's an important decision. Whatever it is you need, please come and do that now while we stand and sing.